if you cannot get people to stop and even pause on the content that you're putting out, you have no hope of them consuming your video or your carousel or whatever post that you have. Your headline is the thing that helps hook them.
This is Candice Davis-Blackman, a certified content and email marketing specialist who has helped clients across 11 niches and in 3 countries build lead generating strategies for their service businesses with content marketing. And today on Useful Content, she's going to help us bring order to our content with content planning and strategy. We're going to look at how to use tools to enhance your content planning and creation.
Well, I have a whole bunch of tools. And some of them people may not consider tools, but I consider tools any templates, any enabler that allows you to build out your strategy.
Why you need to document exactly how you serve your clients in order to make effective content.
If you are an expert, you're saying that you're an expert service provider, you must have some sort of process that you take your clients through in order to get the results that you are promising them.
A better way to use artificial intelligence to create content.
If you say you're an expert, there are things that you do that you're just not going to get from AI.
Why repurposing and repeating your content is not a bad thing.
Because they only remember about 10% of what you say anyway. The sheer volume that people are consuming, they do not remember.
And in our conversation, Candice says something to me that pushes me into a content rant. Let me just kind of go on a little bit of a rant here, seeing as you kind of opened this door up a little bit. Mm-hmm. So one of my biggest problems with how people create content is that let's make useful content. Teaching you to make useful content so that you can build long-term relationships with the people that matter to your business. Hello and welcome to the Useful Content Podcast. I'm your host, Juma Bannister, and I'm a useful content teacher. And today we have a brand new teacher in the Useful Content Classroom, Candice Davis-Blackman. How are you, Candice?
I am well, thank you, Juma, for having me. I'm glad to be here. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I'm glad to be here.
It's great to have you on. We got connected on LinkedIn back in 2021, but I somehow had a revelation of what you do because you shared something and I was like, this is really great content. This is educational. It speaks to somebody who might want to know about this. And I found it to be very, very good. And I love when people share educational content and it really stood out to me. So that's why you are actually here today, because I said, hey, Candice has good stuff to share. So could you please share with the people what you do and how you create useful content for your clients?
Okay, well, I am a content marketing strategist. I always have to make that clear because sometimes people call me a content coach and I say, no, I'm not a coach, that's completely different. I'm a content marketing strategist, and what I do is I work with coaches, consultants, expert service providers, helping them to build their content marketing strategy using email and primarily social media, that's organic and paid social media, so that they can generate leads and clients more predictably without having to create new content all the time. Because that's an issue with this crowd, having to come up with content all the time. It's something they hate. And it's something that you don't have to do all the time if you strategize it, right? And that's something I help people do.
Yeah, that's a big deal. Like, I think because of how content has developed in general, and particularly in the advent of TikTok, what has happened is that people have this idea that they always have to be creating something new. And that is, it's not only a lie, but it's also a big problem because it causes people to get stressed out over what is the new thing, what's the new idea, what's the new piece of content I have to put out. If you are not telling them to create something new, what advice are you giving these people that you work with?
I'm telling them to repurpose. And you're right, with TikTok came this posting 3, 4, 5 times a day. Even before TikTok, It was the same thing on Instagram. People would be giving you advice to post multiple times a day if you want to grow faster. That's the whole thing. You want more followers, you want more engagement, and you need to post multiple times a day every day. And that's the advice that a lot of people are still getting today, and it's wearing them out. So I even saw somebody posted on LinkedIn the other day, don't worry, a lot of people are on the platform now in the first quarter of the year, but after the first quarter, probably March or so, they'll drop off because they'll burn out. Because of this, they feel this need to have to create new content all the time. So I'm saying that no, you don't have to create new content to know. You just have to repurpose what you have. And if what you're starting off with is good quality, targeted content, then you can repurpose. And there's a strategy for repurposing so that you don't have to worry about sounding too repetitive, is what you hear people say. But they'll say that they heard that before. No, not if you do it in the way that I show people how to do it.
No, yeah, that's good. And I know you yourself probably got caught in that in the early days of creating your content, having to share multiple pieces of content and doing new things all the time. How did you escape from that and use repurposing to make your content now?
I started off, I always, in the beginning, when I decided to post content for myself, because in my previous life, I'd say, I was a social media manager. I did social media management. And I never did 7 days a week, even when I was doing it for people. I would say, no, the limit is 5 days a week. So when I started posting for myself under Social Rebellion Marketing, that's my brand, I did 5 days a week. And I think putting yourself out there for the first time, you feel this kind of, okay, you're a newbie on the block. Everybody's been posting for a while. And you feel this pressure to have to come up with something new to say all the time, new to be relevant, because, oh gosh, they will say they heard that before, kind of thing. So always trying to come up with something new week after week, until I got probably a year or so into it and realized people don't remember. They don't. You remembered in the beginning. Now I don't. Now I don't even remember what I posted last month. It's only because I have a sheet that says what I posted is the reason why I remember. But you realize people don't remember because they only remember about 10% of what you say anyway, because of the sheer volume of content that's coming to them on a daily basis. I mean, if you look at the stats of how much content is being produced on each platform, probably LinkedIn is the least competitive. But the sheer volume that people are consuming, they do not remember. They simply don't. Either that, or maybe they heard it and they need to hear it several times for it to sink in. They need to hear it in different ways for it to really start to gel and come together and make sense for them. So I think it's not an issue that people should worry about in terms of feeling repetitive. And I felt that way, and I discarded that when I realized I repurposed the content in that I spoke about the same things in different ways. And nobody said, you said that already. Nobody said that. Nobody said that. I mean, the comments, the reactions were pretty much the same as if people were seeing it for the first time.
Yeah, and that's so true. I think that people do get caught up in this, shiny object syndrome, and I have to do all these new things and jumping on trends, which that's one of I hate that thing the most. I can safely say that, this trend, the jumping thing. And social media, some parts of it has some segments of social media and digital marketing has trained us like that. So they are to blame and we are to blame because we accepted it. But I know that you are very much into content planning and creation. And today we're going to go deeper on how someone can plan content and create content in order to prevent that type of burnout and that type of not being able to focus on something that matters to their business. So why do you believe that business owners should have a content plan before they start to create?
That is to save you from random acts of content. Meaning you wake up, on a morning and you're thinking, what do I post today? And if inspiration does not hit you on that particular morning, you will not post. And then it may happen a second and a third day. And eventually you start to get this feeling of, oh gosh, they haven't seen me or heard from me in the last week or so. And then you get into a rut and you don't post until the second week and the third week. And then all of a sudden you feel frightened about coming back and that kind of thing. So you get into a spiral. And the whole idea of having a plan is to save you from having to get up in the morning and think about what you have to post that day. I mean, you are wasting time by doing that. Some people end up scrolling through social media to get inspiration, or they depending on what happened in their day. And you just cannot really systemize inspiration. I mean, you can collect it as you go along and save a bank of content ideas, but inspiration is not going to hit you every day. You're not going to be motivated either to do that every day. So having a plan helps you to create a system around your content, and it disciplines you. It disciplines you because then you know, okay, Monday I'm going to post this, Wednesday, whatever is your frequency. I always say try not to go below 3 times a week. At least you know that today I know what I'm going to do, right? And content planning is actually one of the 6 fundamental elements, I guess is what I call it, in terms of building a content marketing strategy as far as how I approach it. Before you even get to content planning, you have to understand your business in terms of how you deliver your services and what's the methodology that you have for delivering your business. I'm not even going to, I used to say, start with your audience, but I've pulled back. I said, no. Figure out the methodology, the system that you have for delivering your services to your audience. Because what you're going to do, if you don't do that, is end up with content that is not related to the way in which you deliver value to your clients, to your customers, right? So you need to first understand what it is you do, right? You need to document that, and you would be surprised. A lot of coaches, consultants, expert service providers that I work with have not yet done that. They have not really documented their methodology, right? And then the second thing I say, okay, get to understand your audience. And it's more than just knowing the demographic group. You start there, but it's more than that. It's a deep dive into their frustrations, their pain points, their interests, all of those things. And then we talk about your messaging. How are you going to communicate the value of what you provide? What makes you different, right? What are the benefits of what you deliver? Can you articulate that, right? And then we get to content planning. You see how many steps?
Right.
So normally when people come to me, they are thinking, oh, we're going to start content from day one. Nope. I said, no, you're not ready for that yet. We have to document all of these things before we get to, okay, then what are your content pillars? What are those broad themes, content themes to which your individual content topics will align to? And those content pillars align to your methodology. So that's why we have to figure out your methodology first.
I'm very intrigued by the methodology. I think I know what you mean, and maybe I know it by a different name. But could you go a little deeper into a business owner discovering their methodology and maybe give an example about what that is for the people?
Okay, I will use my own self as an example, right? My methodology, there are 6 steps. Audience, just 6 key steps. So what I call that onboarding analysis area. So I group all of that, understanding your methodology, understanding your audience as the first step. Your messaging, understanding that, putting that together as the second step. Your funnel. Some people call it a client journey, a buyer journey. It goes by several different names, but it's basically what are those steps that you are doing to nurture a prospect into a lead and a client? Your content planning, content creation, content distribution, and in distribution, there's promotion. How do we get that content in front of your audience? And lastly, your analytics. How do you know that you've been successful? Right? So everybody that comes to me goes through these steps. That's my methodology. That's my system. In other words, if you are an expert, you're saying that you're an expert service provider, you must have some sort of process that you take your clients through in order to get the results that you are promising them,
Mm.
right? If somebody cannot do that or they haven't been doing that, then they are not a good fit for us to work together. Because I can't tell you what your process is. You have to have that. And I've had instances where people have come on and they simply have had no process. If they're very new, they haven't worked out their process, and we can't work together. Can't work, I learned too, from doing this thing and realizing, okay, that wasn't a good person to work with because they didn't have a process for what they take their persons through. And I'll tell you why that is so important for me. It may not be for others, but it's important for me because when it comes to coming up with your content ideas, my approach stretches you. You have to be able to speak confidently about what you do. And if you haven't really internalized that, know your system, know what you do to get people the results, then you're going to struggle. You're going
Yeah.
to be asking me for, can I just do a motivational post? And I don't know. That is not enough. That
Oh
is
my goodness.
not enough. Okay. We can't do that.
I love that, and I agree with you 100% that knowing that, and here's the thing. The thing is that these people are experts. They're
Yeah.
doing the actual job.
Mm-hmm.
They've done it for, and many of them have been in the work for a number of years. But when you say, "Well, how do you do this?" They're like, "Well,"
Yeah.
and they can't articulate the steps that they take the a client through, and maybe it's to some degree it's like helping them with their business processes as well. When
Mm-hmm.
you talk about what are the things that you want to focus on in these 1 step, 2 step, 3 steps, 4 steps,
Mm-hmm.
in talking about these content topics or talking about these themes surrounding your content pillars. And I'm sure a lot of people have seen business value in that as well. Have you gotten feedback on that? That people seeing business value in going through that process of defining their methodology?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It helps them get clear. And you're right. It's just that they've become such masters. Some of them, they don't have a process yet. There are some people like that. But those that who I would consider experts, they've just become such masters at what they do. And maybe they just never documented it. And it is hard sometimes to place yourself in the position of the client, not knowing, because when you know something, it's hard to unknow. To place himself in that position and say, okay, what is this person showing me to be able to help me achieve that result? And when they're able to document that, it clicks. It starts to make sense why we approach content marketing strategy in that way. Then it all comes together. And I say having a strategy is that you should see the pieces fitting together. Nothing you do should be wasted effort. It should all be building into each other. That's how you
Oh,
know you have a strategy.
okay, great, wonderful. That's good stuff. I like that. All right, so we talked about the methodology. We kind of jumped over into the meta things, which is
Mm-hmm.
good, right? We just flowed straight into it, which is good. And I know that you do believe that if you spend all your time creating content and you don't have the right strategy and the right tools, it's like a waste of time. What are some of the tools that a business owner can use in order to help them create the right content?
Right. Well, I have a whole bunch of tools. And some of them people may not consider tools, but I consider tools any templates, any enabler that allows you to build out your strategy. So, one of them, absolutely your ideal client profile, right? Some people call it a buyer persona, different names, right? That you'd hear it by. But basically, what that is, it's an overview, a deep dive into who your target audience is. And I think everybody should have one right there, dandy, because you're going to be referring to that. You're going to be updating that even as you go along and you produce content, right? So that's one thing that's very important. Another thing that I use is a brand messaging template, because that helps me in working with my clients to pull their brand message together when you have a template that you can use. And it's not that you have to completely follow the exact wording when you use your when you've articulated that message, but it helps in pulling it succinctly together. What do I do? What value do I provide? How am I different? Right? What are the benefits of my services? That sort of thing. And then, of course, I use a content planning worksheet. Now, this, I wish I could show it to you, but it's very involved, this worksheet. But it allows people to categorize their content into their content pillars, into the topics that their audience is interested in, purpose of that particular piece of content. So is it to generate engagement through comments or through direct messages? Or is it to promote something? Are you promoting a freebie, some sort of free resource that you'd like people to have in exchange for their email list, or whatever sort of list you're building? You can build different types of lists. Or are you directly pitching your services? So what is the purpose behind the content? And then I have a little section there for headline. You know, I once had a client that told me the headline is not important. We just need to.
Oh my goodness!
We just need to
I
come up
hope
with the topics.
I hope you were able to change your mind.
I said,
Uh,
no. I said, no. Let me correct you there. No. Your headline is important. If you cannot get people to stop and even pause on the content that you're putting out, you have no hope of them consuming your video or your carousel or whatever post that you have. Your headline is the thing that helps hook them. So it's very important, and you need to spend some time on it. I spend probably like 10, 20 minutes just crafting headlines for the particular post that I have. You know, I've even come up with a whole sheet, a list of headline hooks that I refer to sometimes to help with that process. So the headlines are important, the key message for that piece of content is important. Boy, is that important. You know, sometimes people create content and they rush to start writing or recording a video, and they have not ironed out what is the key message that I want my audience to walk away with. And that is what makes, I find a lot of the times I'm realizing that is what makes content creation so difficult, content writing, formulating the content so difficult for a lot of people. They haven't quite ironed out in their head what is that thing that they want people to walk away with. So I realized, okay, you have to put this in. People need to know what is the point of this particular piece of post in terms of what's the key message and the takeaway, right? And then what's the call to action, and then where are you going to distribute that content. So that's my content planning sheet. I also use AI as well. I do. When ChatGPT became
Hold on. I want to talk about AI, but
okay.
before you go into AI, let me just say,
Uh-huh.
I'm so happy that when I asked you about tools, you didn't talk about software or things of that nature. And I want to highlight this because it's so very important. The systems that you build, the things that you create in order to make your content process more efficient and to extract the exact thing that you want out of the process are your tools. Those are part of the tools that you create. So if you want brand messaging, there's a tool for that. If you want to plan your content, there's a tool for that. And I'm so glad that you didn't, when I asked you if you, what tools you use, you didn't say CapCut.
Oh
And,
no, yeah,
you know,
yeah, no,
that's a different category. I just want to
yeah.
highlight that. And I want, business owners to know that the software is not the only tools that you use. The systems that you have that you create in order to make the process more efficient, in order to get at very specific things, that is crafted in order
Mhm.
to take you from not being able to talk to your ideal customers to being able to talk to your ideal customers. Those are all the tools that sometimes people they don't get, they don't know about. And when it comes to someone like you, then they discover, oh, this is how you actually do it.
Mhm.
It's not just pulled out of thin air. You have a system for doing it. So I just wanted to highlight that before you jump into AI, because I
Oh,
think it's very important that we don't miss that point in all of the things you were sharing, that we don't miss that point that you brought across, not directly, but you brought across in the sharing these different tools.
that's good because sometimes I guess I could take that for granted. So thank you for pointing that out because you're right. People would normally go to those tools, those external tools, but I think of every template, every worksheet, every guide that I create as a tool because this is really the thing that helps you actually create. All those other tools help you to refine and so and put the last polish together. But the trouble, and people can learn those things, the trouble is that how do I come up with the content? How do I actually write it? That's,
Hmm.
or how do I script it? Or however, your final product is. That's the thing that stumps people.
But let me just kind of go on a little bit of a rant here, seeing as you kind of opened this door up a little bit.
Mhm.
So one of my biggest problems with how people create content is that if you're doing marketing, you know that you're supposed to start at the top. What is the market like? What is the total addressable market? What's the space? You do diagnosis, and then you come down the line into execution. A lot of people, when you start talking to them about content, they're thinking about what content can we make without going through the process, like ideal client, personas, all those different things, and coming down that line. So I'm so glad that you're highlighting those things, because I think we could take it for granted as people who create
Yeah.
content. And I think because other people don't know, they're kind of shocked as to say, oh, you just didn't come up with this idea. No, there's a process behind it. There's a process behind coming up with these things. So I want to highlight that and appreciate that that's actually the case. So that's good stuff. Okay, continue on now. I'm sorry for the interruptions. Continue on.
Okay, and then we get into those external tools. So I started to talk about AI and how I use AI. Now, when ChatGPT came in and it was all the rage, I was hesitant. I was like, what? Because I honestly view that as a threat to what I did. I'm like,
Mhm.
oh my gosh, tools that help you create content. Well, what's going to become of us? Help people actually come up with content, right? And then I realized, okay, no, let me start to experiment and play with this and come from an informed position when I talk about AI. And I play with it, ChatGPT. I'm like, okay, let me see what this comes up with. If I say create a post on repurposing, let me see what it comes up with. And it came up with what you would find if you're Googling something.
Mhm.
But that's just the thing. It's very robotic and dry. Even if I know everybody now has my son just ran into the room.
I'm still going to leave this in, but go ahead.
Right. I was saying that it's pretty robotic and dry, and even if you say, well, do it in a tone that's conversational, or you feed it a piece of content that you had before in your own tone and say, copy this tone up. But all different prompts people have come up with to make AI sound more human, right? And still, it just doesn't do the job particularly because you have, again, I come back to methodology, and that's why that's so important. You have your own way and approach and process and whatever you call it, methodology for doing what you do. And AI cannot tell you that. You have it. That came from your years of experience of working with different clients. You can't, AI can't come up with that for you. It's not in your head. It's going to regurgitate what's been out there and what's been said and what's expected, that kind of thing. So I found that the best way to use it is you create, you start with your original piece of content and then let AI help you in terms of editing it. Because when you write, you may be very verbose and wordy, and there may be ways that you could say things simpler and shorter and get to the point. Use AI to help you do that, to edit the work. Don't use
Right.
it to help you come up with original content because it can't. If you say you're an expert, there are things that you do that you're just not going to get from AI. Right? So, but the thing is, we have folks creating content and they're not confident in what they know. They're not confident in, they think, what I do doesn't measure up to what other people do. And so they're using AI to validate what they do. They're scared, really.
Yeah.
Right? And so that happens and they use AI as a crutch, but I found it just, and you can tell, you can tell AI content. One of the things I hate about it in the marketing field, unleash. The time I see the word unleash
Oh,
or
really? That's a
unlock,
thing?
unleash or unlock or those words, I know it's AI. Because they just can't seem to get around those words in the marketing space. So you always have an idea when something is AI written versus when something comes from the person. And I say
Yeah.
the better way to use it as far as content writing is to edit. But I also use AI as well to help me generate images. So I use Canva a lot. Canva is my go-to graphics tool. I'm no great graphics person, right? Canva works for non-designers like myself. And they've brought out a whole bunch of features, AI included, and ones where you could generate images. And I found that works a lot because I used to spend a lot of time searching for images in these search banks. And now I'm glad that I could type in a word and say, create this image for me. And it does that. So I use AI for that. Those are the two ways in which I use it. But when I work with clients and they see, no, if we do it this way, you're going to be 10 times better than what AI could produce for you. They'd be like, we're producing much better stuff than AI.
Yeah. I agree with that. So there's so many little points you made inside of there. I think one of the major ones I want to highlight is that if you create the content, then you can take that content and use AI to categorize, to refine, to enhance the content. So, for example, when I record like this podcast that we're recording right now, of course, for every podcast, it's recommended that you write show notes. I used to manually write show notes, and I made a video about this. But when we record this, I'm not going to manually write the show notes. We've already said everything that we need to say. We've given all the value inside of this podcast. So I'm just going to tell the AI, which is built into the software I'm editing with right now, write the show notes. And it will go through, it'll write a summary, and it will list all of the timestamps based upon the topics that we talked about. And then it will give, if you wanted to, it can give a conclusion as well. I will go back in, I will look at it to remove all of the weird language that it sometimes puts in, and I'll refine it. But I have a base product based upon what we already spoke about. It didn't generate it from scratch. It took what we spoke about and it created a summary from it. So I think, so what you're saying is so true, that if you take something that you created that came from your mind, from your expertise, and then you use the AI to refine that, that I think is the optimal way for people to create with AI now. So I agree with you 100%. And the other thing I think that you said that was really stood out to me is we came back to methodology. And generally, when we create content strategies and we talk about who you are as a part of the who part of the content strategy. It's about you and it's about your clients. So identify your ICP, that's the who. But the other who is your the person, and that is your values, your expertise, and your story. Those three parts. And inside of your expertise, like how do you do the thing that you do? Which is why when you said methodology earlier, I was like, I think I know what that means.
Right.
And so it's like the same thing. It's the
Yes.
way in which you deliver this service, the step by
Mhm.
step process.
Mhm.
And I find out to be that's so true that the AI does not have your expertise in that way
Is it?
at all. So it cannot deliver on that no matter how it tries. It's unique to you, it's unique to your company, it's unique to your values, your journey. And so that's a leg up you have on delivering to your clients as well. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. That is definitely the leg up, and I think that that's how you can work with. You don't have to look at it as working against you if you are in the content space, a social media manager, that kind of thing. You can work with it in that way. I also use it to help with the repurposing element as well, and I explain what I mean by that. Let's say you have a content idea, and when I talk about repurposing, let me just step back a little bit. I mean it in two ways. So, one, you can repurpose the format of the content. So, we have this podcast, and this podcast could become individual shorter clips, and that's a way to repurpose it. Or the transcript could become a part of your blog. That's another way to repurpose it, and on and on. So, you can repurpose the format of it. But you can also repurpose in the sense of changing the angle from which you approach the particular message or topic. So let's say I created a post about how to come up with content ideas that generate leads. I could repurpose that into the real reason why you're not generating leads. And the key message stays the same, but I'm approaching the same message from a different angle. And a lot of people don't think about repurposing content in that way. And AI can help you come up with those different angles. And I have a whole list, that's another tool that I use. I have a whole list of different angles, and it's categorized according to the purpose, whether I want to generate awareness or generate leads or generate book calls or that kind of thing. And I would put in a prompt like, hey, come up with different angles based on these list of angles that I give you for a particular topic, like how to generate content topics that generate leads, and it will spit it out based on the list of angles that I gave them. So it gives me all the different potential headlines, right? Which are basically the different angles from which I'm approaching the same message. So that's something, if you did manually, would take you some time. But here's AI is able to speed up that process for you. And there, one topic could turn into 15 plus pieces. It's 15 topics just from one topic using AI to speed up the process. But of course, with AI, the better the input, the better the output. If you don't know what the different angles are, I suppose by now it can do it because it's learning. By now it could probably come up with different angles for you if you don't feed it. But because I know what angles suit different stages of my buyer journey, I feed it what I want. See again, methodology, system, process. I feed it what I want to get back what I want out of it. So that's another way that I use AI to help with that repurposing of content.
I have a question. I love what you're sharing and how simple you're making the process of using these tools sound. And not just the simplicity of it, but why it's better to do it this way. Because as you said at the very early beginning of the podcast, avoid random acts of content. And so we are learning how we can do that by using these tools to structure things. You did mention inside of what you said just now, you did talk about it could turn this into take different angles and create, let's just say, 15 different headlines or different types of content. Are you concerned? Are you afraid that some of it might just be too much and it might overwhelm a client? What does a client say when they have all this content now, and they're thinking about, oh my goodness, how am I going to actually use this and distribute it? What is the challenge with having all of this content now?
Oh, yeah, because after I'm done with a client, they have at least 60 content topics, and that is overwhelming. When they look at it, they're happy because that's what they sort of wanted coming in, right? That's what they think is the output. Oh, I'm going to get all these topics. But then when you see it, the next natural question is, okay, but what do I post first? What do I post when? And so that's where another tool comes in, your content calendar. What do you post when? Now, I always say marketing is about delivering the right message to the right people at the right times, essentially, when it boils down to it, right? No matter what type of marketing that you practice. And so that's where understanding what types of content you create becomes important. So how do you determine what you post when? That is directly related to your funnel or your buyer journey or your client journey, whatever terminology that you apply to it. Basically, what are the steps that you have decided that you are going to take to nurture a stranger into a lead and a client, right? So for me, I start at awareness, content that I want to get in front of new eyes, people within my audience. So there are top. So if I decide that within over these 3 weeks, 4 weeks, that this is my goal, I'm at this stage where I want to attract new eyes. This is the season that I'm in. I need to bring in fresh eyes, right? As the largest pool within your client journey, as the largest group, and you need to keep bringing in fresh eyes, then I know I need to prioritize content that focuses on attracting new eyes, right? So it doesn't mean that I'm only producing content that does that. I'm just saying that the majority of the content pieces that I put out will be geared towards that. So that helps me determine that. And then let's say, okay, I want to start generating booked calls. I want to start generating subscribers. I know I need to go into promoting my lead magnet if I want subscribers. So I have different types of content that promotes the lead magnets that I have. Or if I want booked calls for me are in two ways. I do book calls to nurture relationships and qualify leads. And leads for me are people who join my email list. So I have their contact information. They've shown interest in my business, but I need to qualify them. Those are unqualified leads. They came in because I offered them something that solved a very specific problem, but I don't know if they're the right fit for me. I need some more information. So I do booked calls. So in those booked calls, I offer something very specific that lets me know that if they put up their hand to want this, then they are probably the right fit for me. It's the right time for me to make an offer to them. Because I do believe sometimes you can make an offer at the very wrong time when they're not ready, right? You need something that tells you that, hey, if this person is asking this, then they're going to be a good fit for the type of services that you have. So I have book calls that do that. Sometimes people do it with workshops, master classes, all of those things are things that help you qualify, right? Or entry point offers, sometimes is what people call it. They can be paid, they can be free. All up to you, all up to the strategy in terms of how you customize it. And then you have the straight out sales calls where people come on because they know they want your service and they're just trying to figure out, what's the details? How do we actually work together? What's your price? What's your, all those things that can work out there. So I'm saying depending on where you are at in the phase of your buyer journey, your client journey, you must know the steps that you are passing them through to come from stranger to client. Then you focus on more of those content pieces that serve that goal, right? Now, the thing is, when you're on social media, you can be talking to people at all different stages of that journey. I'm talking to people who are on my list, who've been on calls with me. All this a mix-up callaloo. right? So you're sharing, but again, you determine what's the goal in your mind. Now, the real way to get more precise with that timing, I always tell people, is getting into ads and getting into email marketing. That's why I don't do a content marketing strategy without email. And I recommend ads. Not everybody does it because they're not ready or for many different reasons, but ads helps you to get very specific in the types of content you could show people based on the content they've already seen. But I don't want to get into that. That's a next. That's going down
That's
another. That could
the
be a
next.
whole other show on
That's a
advertising.
yeah, and I am not an ad person. We really focus on organic growth,
Right.
so that probably could be a discussion we have on specifically on ads because ads are very interesting. I've had a couple discussions with people about
Mm-hmm.
running ads, and I know ads are a whole thing, especially since Facebook changed this whole system, and it's
Yeah.
interesting. It's very very interesting. All right, great. So we're coming in to the ending here. Is there anything? So what you've shared so far has been great. Is there any last points that you would want to share with the people about their content that you want them to know before we close off?
Ooh, what do I want to share? I want to say that, you know, a lot of what I do, and everybody in this space does, is social media marketing, right? And with that count, it's great. It's a absolutely great tool, but it comes with certain things that you have to watch out for as well that I've seen, especially with the clients that I've worked with. One of them is comparisonitis. When you get into that doom scrolling, and maybe you find that your results are not coming fast enough, and you start looking at other people, and then you say to yourself, but what they're saying not even as good as what I have to say. And look at all the comments, look at all the likes, look at all the followers. What am I doing wrong? I can't figure this thing out. And then coupled with that, you have a million people telling you, this is the way, this is how you go from 0 to 10,000 followers in 30 days. And you have that thrown at you, it's easy to get discouraged and give up. And a lot of people fall away. They start, content, it's an investment, of your time, your creativity, and everybody wants fast results. We're in the fast culture, everything quick, and all the tools are coming to help us do things quicker, and we expect results quicker. But organic, particularly organic content strategies, organic content marketing takes time, right? If that's what you commit to do, I always say, then you know that you have to give it time. You have to stick with something long enough. Don't abandon it after
Mm-hmm.
1 week or 2 weeks and say it's not working. You have to stick with it long enough. And you have to tell yourself, okay, they're doing that, but you don't know their audience is different. The people who you see with the 10 million, they may have been in the game a lot longer than you. They've
Mm-hmm.
built their audience over time. You were not there when they were doing that. And so you're seeing them at the peak and you're wondering why they're not there yet. Run your race. Run your race. Stay true to the strategy that you have. Don't abandon it. Don't go after shiny. And that's where the desperation comes in and people start looking for, maybe it's this. This is the silver bullet. This is the silver bullet. This is the silver bullet. And I have to say, I guess I'm a part of the field marketers. We've done a poor job of that. We're selling silver bullets, but there are no silver bullets. There are different elements that come together to make something work. And the pieces of content that you hear from us that we put out are just one piece of the puzzle to help make your strategy more effective. It's not everything. If you want to know everything, then invest. Go to a strategist, go to a marketer, go to whoever to understand all that it takes. Because when we put out content, we're putting out bite-sized pieces because that's all you can take. We can't give you everything in one. It's impossible. We have to feed it to you in bite-sized pieces, and we're not even feeding it to you in the order that we do it because there are other things at play. So you need to understand that. And when you hold on to a strategy, hold on to it for as long as you need to. Give yourself that timeline. That's why performance analytics are important. Know how long you're going to stick with something to know when you have to pivot, do something different, change up what you're doing. Right? Don't fall into the trap of it's happening. Look at them, so much followers in 30 days. Some of them straight up lying to you anyway. So I just needed to say that you're doing. Right? Don't fall into the trap of it's happening. Look at them, so much followers in 30 days. Some of them straight up lying to you anyway. So I just needed to say that.
That's true. So these are great and powerful words to finish off our conversation, Candice, and I'm sure that will help the people so much. And some people may want to get in contact with you based upon everything that you shared today. Could you tell the people where they can find you online?
You can find my website is cdblackman.com, cdblackman.com, or they can find me at, my handles are at Social Rebellion Marketing. So you can find me on LinkedIn, you can find me on Instagram. Those are primarily the two platforms that I hang out on. I have a presence on Facebook, but organic. Yeah. You know what it is with Facebook.
You haven't posted this since 2021. So
yeah, right?
Yeah.
So it's really Instagram. I actually recently returned to LinkedIn. I started in LinkedIn and then I stopped. That's a whole other conversation. And I came back last year around November 26th. So you'll find me there, LinkedIn and Instagram at Social Rebellion Marketing.
That's when I noticed you, I think. So thank you so much, Candice, for being on here. And thank you, students, for being here with us on the podcast today. Useful Content Classroom, dismissed. And we're clear. Good stuff. There's lots of stuff I wanted to ask you, but we couldn't.
Sorry, I was talking too much.
We run out of time. Girl, you can talk.
Honestly, I don't talk that much in real life, but when this is something I'm passionate about, so.
Yeah, you get excited. It's like, what? These people doing all the wrong stuff. That's so good. All right, let me stop the recording. The Useful Content Podcast is brought to you and produced by Relate Studios. You can see the work we do on our website at relatestudios.com. If you like what you've heard on the podcast today, please follow and come back in 2 weeks for another great episode. And if you want to get more useful content in between that, you can follow me, Juma Bannister, on LinkedIn and on Twitter. We all know it's still Twitter. See you soon in the Useful Content Classroom.